You don't belong here, old man. This is for real citizens. The bailiff barked before seizing my elbow and guiding me out of the courtroom. I didn't resist. I simply nodded once and walked into the hallway. My intention wasn't to cause trouble, but to testify on behalf of a young man who couldn't speak up for himself. 10 minutes later, as he reviewed my file, the judge paused abruptly in his reading. His hands began to tremble before he rose from his seat and uttered 4 words that hushed everyone present. Write dignity in the comments if you believe justice begins with respect. I am not here for recognition. I'm here because someone needs to speak on behalf of that young man. Jamal was just 22, struggling, angry, and trapped by a system that never offered him an opportunity. His record was filled with minor offenses, each one adding up like bricks, forming a wall meant to confine him. However, what his file didn't reveal were instances like when he rescued a stranger from a burning car, or how he cared deeply for his grandmother after everyone else had deserted her. But I noticed something special in his eyes. It was something familiar from a war-zone, those empty eyes of someone who had fought too long without support. So, I arrived with my jacket pristine and boots polished, folder in hand. 7 combat tours taught me that how you present yourself is crucial when the odds aren't in your favor. The courthouse radiated marble grandeur and authority, place meant to shrink those who already feel small. No one questioned my identity. No one looked twice at me. Just another old man, likely lost or confused amidst it all, or so they thought. Since retiring, I've worn invisibility like a second skin, and sometimes it's quite the blessing. The day felt jinxed until I attempted to enter the courtroom. You're not on the list, the bailiff barked, scrutinizing my worn-out appearance with obvious scorn. I'm a character witness, I responded steadily, producing the subpoena that had been delivered 3 weeks earlier. The document was crisp and official, entirely legitimate, but he scarcely looked at it before saying dismissively, "Not anymore. You're not," with an air of casual disregard for those considered insignificant. He grabbed my arm as his badge glinted under the fluorescent lights. In this hallway, his authority was unquestionable. I found myself retreating into the corridor, my knees aching in protest. There was no use contending, for decades of experience had taught me to choose battles wisely, and this wasn't one worth engaging in, at least not now. I'd faced harsher evictions from far more perilous locations, where a misstep could mean never returning home. Desert compounds, mountain village, places with much higher stakes than here. This felt like just another day on duty, another assignment unfolding around me. As I sat quietly outside, with the folder resting on my lap, and waited patiently for what came next while enduring the unforgiving bench beneath me. As time dragged slowly onward, other witnesses shuffled in and out, their testimonies resonating through the solid wooden doors. Within that folder lay photographs, letters, commendations, none of them mine but Jamal's, a collection of small moments of grace in a life seldom touched by kindness, a certificate for volunteering at the senior center, a thank you note from a teacher who recognized potential when no one else did, all proof of an invaluable soul worth saving. The clock ticked steadily as my arthritis flared up again. I adjusted my tie and waited patiently. Some battles are won with fire and fury. Others require quiet persistence. He had mastered both strategies. An hour slipped by, and then another, as court officers hurried past without a second look. Lawyers in pricey suits whispered strategies among themselves. No one noticed the old soldier sitting still, protecting his papers like top-secret files. My thoughts drifted to Jamal, standing before judgment, lacking all the details. How many others had faced this solitude, How many stories remain untold because those who knew were disregarded at entry? Suddenly my phone buzzed. It was my daughter checking in with a message. "Everything okay, Dad? Just waiting here." I responded to the text, reminding myself that some things require time. I sat her day quietly outdoors with a folder on my lap, waiting patiently. Patience was a skill I'd refined over decades, and today it would be more effective in achieving justice than any protest could ever be. Inside the courtroom, frustration tinged the judge's voice as he questioned why the character witness had not appeared. His words echoed through the partially open door into already delayed proceedings. The public defender juggling an overwhelming workload of 30 other cases, whilst underpaid, murmured something about confusion at reception. His tone implied that this was just a procedural step, just another box to tick before proceeding with the sentencing. "Now," the judge demanded, and hovering over documents that would decide a young man's fate for the next 10 years. "Daniel H. Dweller," replied the lawyer, struggling through his cluttered notes. Just another name in yet another case on an ordinary day until it wasn't anymore. The judge paused mid-sentence as familiarity struck him, not so much asking, but gradually recognizing something significant about that name. He signaled the clerk to bring up the background file, a routine step for witnesses with possible credibility concerns. The courtroom maintained its usual written. Prosecutors leafed through notes. Stenographers' fingers clicked away relentlessly, and Jamal gazed at his hands in resignation. 2 minutes later, an eerie silence enveloped the room. Papers were still mid-shuffle. Whispers vanished into thin air. Only the faint whir of air conditioning persisted. Breaking this hush was the judge's voice. "Is this Sergeant Major Weller, from Operation Echo Ridge, Iron March?" His tone shifted from one of routine to reverence. The lawyer, suddenly alert, noticed the change in atmosphere and nodded instinctively. With deliberate slowness, the judge rose. His black robes appeared heavier with newfound gravity. After 2 decades on the bench, an uncommon expression regret crossed his face. "Bring him back," he commanded, a statement imbued with authority and respect rather than a mere request. The bailiff hurriedly dashed through the double doors into the corridor beyond, past security without hesitation. I remained seated there still, my newspaper unread resting quietly on my lap as events unfolded around me. The very same invisible man, who'd been dismissed hours earlier while my coffee grew cold beside me, was now being invited in. "Sir, the judge would like to apologize. Please come in." His tone reflected newfound respect, instead of dismissal, as he held the door open wide for me, stark contrast to before when his arm had pushed me away. I entered quietly, without a smile, not feeling triumphant or vindicate, just present and composed, as I'd been trained for any high-stakes situation. Every head turned. The prosecutor adjusted himself with sudden attentiveness. The clerk stood up from his seat. Jamal's expression shifted from confusion to curiosity within moments as an atmosphere thick enough to be tangible enveloped us all. The judge descended from the bench, an unprecedented action that caused murmurs to ripple through the gallery. He extended his hand towards me, and I took it with a firm grip. "I have read your file," he declared in a resonant voice that reached every corner of the room, "and am ashamed we didn't recognize you sooner." This was public acknowledgement of a public error. I nodded in response. This moment wasn't supposed to be about method, was precisely my point all along. As requested by the judge's gesture, I approached the stand, while walking past Jamal at the defense table. Our eyes met briefly but meaningfully. Realization set in it of my name or status, but of purpose. Someone was there for him, relentless and unwavering. The young defendant glanced up with tears brimming his eyes. A subtle shift straightened his shoulders as he understood that someone truly advocated for him not out of duty or obligation, but from genuine belief. My testimony lasted 12 minutes, honest and straightforward yet deeply human. I spoke about rehabilitation, second chances, and the lessons learned in war zones, where young men were cast aside rather than reintegrated. When I completed my statement, the judge expressed gratitude, not just a simple thank you, but a profound recognition typically reserved for those who have selflessly sacrificed without seeking praise. As I left the stand, people in the gallery made way for me to pass. The bailiff gave me a nod of silent acknowledgement that turned feelings of shame into respect. That day marked significant change. Sentencing recommendations were reconsidered and alternative options explored. It was as if someone's life found new direction with dignity regained. This shift didn't occur because I was exceptional, but rather because justice took a momentary pause to acknowledge what had previously been overlooked. If you believe that even forgotten heroes can make a difference, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Following the trial, people began engaging in discussions not with shouts or protests, but through calm dialogues spreading like ripples on still water. A decorated war hero waited humbly outside the courtroom as it nearly dismissed its most valuable witness. The system often muddles authority for justice and procedure for purpose. The story reached the newspapers not by my doing, but due to an official statement from the judge. 3 paragraphs. Official letterhead. No excuses. If justice fails to recognize honor, it must reevaluate its perspective. These straightforward words were the potential for significant change. Within days, other veterans began voicing their experiences of feeling dismissed and unheard, not only in courtrooms but also in hospitals and government office places where their service should have been acknowledged, but was often overlooked instead. They recounted tales of being treated like invisible entities in the very nation they had defended. A policy was enacted requiring every county court to cross-check backgrounds before denying testimony. A minor adjustment with significant consequences led to the invisible becoming visible once more. The bailiff who removed me wasn't dismissed. Instead, he was reassigned to veterans outreach training, a punishment masked as an opportunity, redemption veiled in protocol. A new plaque now adorns the courthouse facade. Let no voice be silenced, especially those who fought for the right to speak. Its bronze letters offering a subtle yet lasting reminder. Jamal's sentence was reduced. Community service as an alternative to incarceration, a chance hidden within a consequence. His case became a landmark in similar hearings, known by some clerks as the Weller precedent. Despite my requests against it, I never saw Jamal again. Our paths were destined to intersect briefly, rather than become entangled. My place was that of an observer, not a redeemer. Certain tasks are finished when they're done. However, months later, he sent me a letter without any return address, just my name written correctly on the envelope. Inside the room lay a job acceptance letter, a college application, and a photograph of him with his grandmother both smiling. There were also 7 words written in careful script: because you Saturday outside that room. I walked out of it. These words held more significance than any medal ever could. Nowadays, the judge and I occasionally meet for coffee, not quite as friends but as respectful participants engaged in an ongoing dialogue about the true nature of justice. He asks questions. Some I answer while others remain suspended between us like unfinished bridges, waiting to be built gradually over time. The courthouse has since installed a bench in the hallway much more comfortable than its predecessor. A small brass plate adorns the armrest. It reads, For those who wait, no names or explanations accompany it, just a nod to the fact that waiting itself can be an act of courage. My daughter inquired if I felt vindicated. I replied no, because vindication suggests triumph over something adversarial. This wasn't about winning at all. Instead, it was about reminding a system of its foundational purpose and intent. Some refer to it as the courtroom miracle, but miracles elude explanation. This situation was far more straightforward. Dignity acknowledged and recognized for what it isn't miraculous but purely human and simply right. I still find myself walking by the courthouse occasionally, usually on Tuesdays when the morning sun casts a special light over its stone steps. It transforms an otherwise ordinary building into something nearly sacred. I never go inside and out of resentment, but because I feel that place has now gained true insight. My absence holds more significance than my presence once did. Some lessons demand space to truly take hold. The new bailiff carries himself with greater confidence and gives me a knowing nod whenever our paths cross. Though we haven't exchanged words, there's an unspoken mutual understanding between us. A silent current of respect doesn't always require conversation. Young lawyers occasionally seek guidance, their earnest expressions reflecting costly educations and eyes still glowing with idealism, untouched by the wear of compromise. I advise them to begin by listening to those who are often unheard. They look for tactics, strategies, and dramatic courtroom maneuvers like in films. Yet, I persistently emphasize that justice starts with hearing others out through 9 simple words until they grasp it truly. My military friends sometimes wonder if I regret not making a more significant impact on that day. Lodging complaints and insisting on apologies can lead to change through confrontation rather than presence. I choose not to follow this path. Some battles are won with loud proclamations, while others succeed through gentle reassurance. Having experienced both types of victories, I understand which have a more lasting impact on the spirit of a place. The folder I carried that day remains with me because it's needed, but as a reminder that documents don't hold as much weight as determination does in enacting real change. Papers may establish facts, but people reveal truth. On certain nights, I envision courtrooms where everyone is truly seeing, where worth isn't dictated by uniform, title, or age, and justice doesn't need constant reminders to be thorough. These aren't merely dreams of what could be, they are glimpses into an unfolding reality. Slowly but surely, change happens with each acknowledgement. Jamal works at the Veterans Center. Of fact, I've learned it from the judge rather than directly from him. Though our paths diverge, we remain linked by invisible threads of consequence. He mentors young men whose records mirror his past struggles, the circle completing itself quietly and unobtrusively. I've been invited to speak at judicial conferences multiple times but have chosen not to attend because my influence has never resided in speaking publicly. It was about being present, in standing by, in rejecting the notion that aging means fading into invisibility. Dignity is subtle. It doesn't need to shout. The most significant transformations occurred through quiet moments, whispers, nods of agreement, and doors being held open when they once were shut tight. I wasn't merely cast aside. Instead, I found my place restored without raising my voice even once. Through this inclusion, the very narrative of justice underwent a silent revision. Every Tuesday as I walked past that spot, a constant reminder. I knew some viewed it as a minor victory, but make no mistake, this wasn't insignificant, because small victories can fade away over time while this one stretches its influence into policies for continuous growth. Attitudes evolved, lives took new directions. I wasn't the hero of that courtroom. Instead, I served as a reminder to that place of what justice truly represents. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you believe some individuals can redefine justice through their actions alone.